All right, so this is English 250, week 6, part 2. I need to get one of those clackers from, in the old movies, they would have like a take one, clack, clack. I'm going to get one of those. Okay, so the next sentence is such a ridiculous sentence, and it's exhausting, and it's going to make you crazy, but I think it's important. He's talking about simulation, right? Simulation is a copy of reality, but it becomes, simulation is a copy of reality, like art. Simulacra up here. It's really just his fancy philosophy term for art, because a simulation copies the real world, right? If you go, like, a military simulation is when you pretend you play a game where you're gonna like raid a complex and like save people who have been kidnapped. It's not real, but it's supposed to simulate something real so that when the real thing occurs, you've had some practice. That's a simulation, and you can see that that's sort of like art because it's a copy of reality. So he uses the word simulation and simulacra to mean art, although what he means by it, his simulacra in particular, means the kind of thing where the simulation is so close you can't tell the difference anymore, and that's where life gets scary. Okay, so, and this is a crazy sentence, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. A lot of bugs. He says, the simulation, whose operation is nuclear and genetic and no longer specular and discursive. Those are 4 very tough words to have in a row. Simulation, whose operation is nuclear and genetic and no longer specular and discursive. Like, that's one of the sentences that just makes you want to fucking lie down on the floor and give up. Holy shit. Okay, so it's nuclear and genetic and no longer specular and discursive. This is actually a pretty easy sentence if you look up the words. It's not that hard. They're just unusual words being used they're being used in an unusual way. So we can break it down very easily. You're going to be able to handle this in 3 minutes. You'll know exactly what the sentence means. Specular. Spectacles. Expectation. Looking. Specular means looking. A spectacle is something great to look at. Spectacles is an old-fashioned word for glasses that you wear in the face. So specular means looking. Discursive means words. Discourse is words. So he says so discourse is words, and specular means looking. Nuclear has to do with atoms, and you know what nuclear and genetic are, right? Genetic stuff has to do with DNA, and nuclear stuff has to do with like atoms and neutrons and protons and electrons and shit. So what does that sentence mean? He says that the simulation is now nuclear and genetic rather than specular and discursive. What he means is that we've entered into a world where man-made things used to be specular, you could just fucking look at them like a painting, or discursive, meaning they used to be made of words, like a book. But now things are nuclear and genetic, meaning we can create things on the subatomic. You can create matter, or you can rearrange matter and create new elements with fancy machines or whatever. Or you can clone somebody with their DNA, and that's very different. So his point is, in the old days, people used to copy reality with words and pictures, but now we can copy reality with DNA and with atoms, and like that's where things start to get crazy and disturbing for him. So see, he can totally handle that sentence. It's not that bad. All right, let's see what else he says. Oh God, the next sentence is also impossible. With it goes all of metaphysics. Do I want to do this? I kind of want to give up on Baudrillard. He's making me crazy. Okay, I can do it. With it goes all of metaphysics. Metaphysics. No. I can do this. Metaphysics. You actually know what metaphysics is. We didn't call it that. Metaphysics is like a fancy philosophy term for the study of reality itself. Like, think about physics as being like how things move around in reality. Metaphysics is like God level shit. So actually, the best example of metaphysics, you all know, one of the most famous examples of metaphysics ever, is Plato's metaphysics. Plato's metaphysics is, this world is an illusion, there is a higher heavenly world where things are real, truth, justice, goodness, beauty exist in a higher heavenly world, and reality is just a copy, and art is a copy of a copy. Sorry, I got a lot of dust and bugs and things there. That's metaphysics. He says, with simulation causes all of metaphysics to be destroyed. Why? Well, because the whole concept of metaphysics, like think about Plato's metaphysics, there's a higher heavenly world and there's a lower reality. Well, Baudrillard's whole point is that we're starting to blur the lines where I can't tell, right? Metaphysics is like art is like this, but reality is like that. Reality is like this, but the higher heavenly truth is like that. The whole concept of metaphysics means there are levels. But with simulation, if you can copy something so exactly that no one can tell the difference, there are no more levels, right? If you can tell, when you can tell the difference between you and a drawing of you, you can see One's a copy, one's real. But with a clone, people wouldn't even be able to tell which one was you and which one was fake. With a doppelganger, a fucking ghost or some shit, or an alternate universe version of you, nobody can tell. And that's his point, is that it's the power of simulation. It's not just like, ooh, isn't it creepy that we can make clones now? It's like, doesn't this destroy all of philosophy? Since so much of philosophy is about the relationship between one reality and another. Plato's higher heavenly reality and our reality and the reality in a book. And he feels like it's going to cause everything to disintegrate. I feel like I'm doing a pretty good job of this. Okay, let's keep going. No more mirror of being and appearances, the real and the concept. Okay, we don't care about this. Being here means reality. Appearance is just what being is what it is. Appearance is what it looks like. Same thing here. The concept is an idea. The real is like reality. It's the same. We've been talking about. These are all just other words for, I don't know, something and its copy. No more imaginative coextensivity, rather genetic miniaturization is the dimension of simulation. Again, clones. Okay. The real is produced from miniaturized units, from matrices and memory banks and command models, and with it, these can be reproduced an indefinite number of times. It no longer has to be rational, since it's no longer measured against some ideal or negative instance. It is nothing more than operational. In fact, it is no longer enveloped by an imaginary. It is no longer real at all. It is hyperreal, the product of an irradiating synthesis of combinatory models in hyperspace without an atmosphere. Okay, oh my god, I'm not doing that. Honestly, he's not saying anything particularly interesting. That's what he said before. His point, he says it's nothing more than operational, meaning it's just what it does, not what it is. It sounds like a crazy thing to say. And I'm sorry for coming back again and again to the exact same example, but clones. It's like if someone makes a copy, if you die and someone replaces you with an exact copy and nobody notices, reality is different. But in terms of operational stuff, in terms of like what happens in the world, nothing changes. It's the exact same thing. No one can tell the difference. I watched a TV show recently, and at the end of the TV show, they tried to give it a happy ending. So they had these characters who had all this fucked up shit. I'm not going to say what the TV show is because I don't want to spoil it. But they had all this fucked up shit happen to the characters, and then the characters died. But then just before their death, they were copied into a computer, and they got to go to heaven, basically. And it was like this happy ending, except like, that's not a happy ending. Like if somebody was like, hey, Jeff, I'm going to copy you, and then I'm going to murder the copy, and then, I'm going to copy you, then I'm going to murder you, and the copy gets to live happily ever after. How do you feel like that? How do you feel about that? And I'd be like, fuck no, please don't kill me. I would rather be alive than dead. I would rather be unhappily alive than have somebody else who looks just like me get to go to heaven. That's stupid. And that's his point. Like, Baudrillard's point is that, like, there is a difference there. It's just with you dead, no one's around to notice it. It's operational. It has to do with what happens. Whereas philosophy tends to be less concerned with what happens than like what is the nature of reality. And the nature of reality is you're fucking dead. But nobody notices, so who cares? That's appearance as opposed to being. Okay, let's take a look. All right, I'm going to move a little. I may be skipping some of this because holy shit, we can't. Oh, and I'm done with this video. Okay, I will see you guys in the next video because the other one ran long, so this is short. Okay.